Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is BDF44. So I don't know how this video is gonna go. Some things going on here at work may take me away from completing this video. Not quite as comfortable as I normally am today, but I'm still gonna try to make this video because I have a point on my mind and I'd like to express it. Thanks for watching. So this is what we got going on. Basically, I'm watching the fallout from all of this. The Black Lives Matter movement and just seeing how white people are reacting to everything. And I've already mentioned how some of the energy has been a bit tone deaf, but I do appreciate the effort and I do appreciate the gesture and the gesture. Um, I feel it's necessary, regardless of what motivates it. Some people are doing things for money, trying to improve their image because it's PC. Others are doing it just because they want to be on the right side of history and understand what we've been trying to get them to understand. So I appreciate it either way, regardless if it's real or if it's just self-serving, because I think the demonstration is something that others can follow, regardless. So it doesn't matter to me. Just keep trying is what I would say for all those who are trying. Keep trying. It's something that I appreciate as an African American. However, there is an however to this. The however to this is, I'm not canceling Robert Downey Jr. for doing a blackface in a movie that I watched several times and laughed at each time. His character was probably my favorite in the movie. I thought he did a fantastic job. And I'm picking and choosing. I reserve that right. That particular blackface just didn't bother me. And I can understand why somebody would say, well, that's inconsistent. How could you feel that way? Why would you cancel a random citizen for doing blackface, or a young 15-year-old girl for doing blackface and not Robert Downey Jr.? And I'll say, well, you know what? To be honest with you, I don't know. I sat up and I thought about that last night for 30 minutes. Good 30 minutes of just sitting in reflection in the dark about that particular topic. And the answer is, it just comes down to how people make you feel. Because you can't confirm what a person feels in their heart. Robert Downey Jr. may love nothing but black people because I ain't never met him. I don't know what the heck he's into. He may have went through Klan training for all I know. I have no idea. Those are two obviously extreme cases of possibilities that neither of which I will never know the answers to. And that's the point. So if I pick and choose who is doing blackface, it doesn't mean that I feel like I'm right in that picking and choosing. It just means that I can't confirm how anyone feels. So all I can go by is how I feel when I see it. And that's the conclusion I came to. I was basically kicking my own butt for being a hypocrite, and then I realized, there's no way to confirm how people feel. There could be people out there screaming Black Lives Matter, even donating money, even standing out there protesting, but they may be awful human beings that I can't get with. Or they may not be motivated by anything that has to do with what they're saying. Can't confirm. There may be someone on the other side who's very conservative, but deep in their heart, they want just what we want. People to be treated fair and all of that. They just happen to have been raised in a bad culture that they don't know how to step away from. Or they don't have the perspective needed to help them understand how to best express the feelings that are inside of them. And that's the kind of thing that we have to deal with, all of us, in identifying the people around us and trying to get a feel for the people and their intentions. You just got to go by how you feel when it comes to stuff like this. Because I don't feel like canceling everybody is the right way to go. I don't think it is. I look and I say, well, there have been many, many cases of blackface that have offended me. I looked at them with the same amount of unknown, more or less, in regards to what's motivating the energy. Sometimes when you watch certain things, you just get a different feeling from it. See a random person doing blackface in the mirror, what's coming out of their mouth? Are they mocking somebody? Are they doing a character? Or are they just flat out being disrespectful? It's all about how I feel when I see it. And I found, and I don't like to admit this, but it's true, I found the same goes with the N-word with myself. I can listen to it from some black people, or non-black people, It doesn't affect me the same way as I hear it from another non-black person. It's a case-by-case basis situation for me. And I recently discovered that. I wasn't quite self-aware to that knowledge. It was just kind of something I was getting a feel for and didn't really give too much thought to. But last night, thought about that too. There are certain people who aren't black who say the N-word, and it doesn't bother me. I don't know why. Those situations are very far and in between. Don't get it twisted. I don't want to hear you say it. But there are certain individuals, certain just people that have said it, and it ain't bother me. And I knew it probably should. Just because it's universally understood that word is disrespectful to my people. But the reality is, the context, the vibes of which it's being said, who's saying it, the relationship that you have with that person, whether or not you know them well enough to say who they are on the inside and what they mean by that, culture, you know what I mean? I don't want to call nobody out because I don't want to bring light to this, but there are certain people that say it we don't even think about, and they're not black people. You know, they just say it. It's in their everyday language. They say it, and it's understood that that's just what it is. We don't trip. And then there are other people who don't want to hear it at all. Right? When I say this, I speak for myself, because I know that there are other African Americans who do not feel this way. People that I've known, including my mother, who don't want to hear it out of anybody's mouth. And she's going to be offended whether it's a black person saying it or a white person saying it. That's what's really unique about my upbringing. My mom hated the N-word. I never heard her say it. I don't think she ever uttered that word in my presence. She loathed that word, more so than most people that I've ever heard of. She hated the word more than anybody I knew. But I just didn't grow up that way, and I had a conversation with her before she passed about that. I was like, no, I just don't view that word the same way you do. I don't. And she was like, well, we're never going to be on the same page about that. I'm like, I think you're right. It's just a different culture for me. Raised in the hip-hop world, the hip-hop culture. Raised in Los Angeles. It's just the way it's the way we speak. Maybe we shouldn't. You know, maybe that's part of the evolution. Try to not necessarily use that word at all, really. Maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to sit up here and confess and speak about, and just kind of let you guys understand that I'm still trying to sort this out. I'm still trying to figure out why I feel the way that I do about these things. And in hopes that I can shed some light from my perspective, because maybe there's somebody else who feels this way, or maybe I'm another black face that can help provide a variety that is needed for everyone to see. You know, you need to see all of us, because you need to know that we can come random. And what I mean by that is, what I mean by that is we have a lot of different facets to us, and I'm sure most people already know that, but those who don't know that need to know that. That way they can relate to us a little better. I heard something that said, basically Drew Brees about 3 weeks ago started listening to rap music because he wants to be able to relate to his black teammates better. Culture for us, though it's the same type of pride within the culture, and we welcome those who want to involve themselves in the culture of hip-hop and black culture just in general, for some reason, and I can't put my finger on it, we as African Americans want that relationship that you have with our culture to be organic. That's very important to us. I don't think it's important as much to others in some cases. I can't say I know of all cultures, obviously, but I don't get the feeling that the Spanish culture feels that way necessarily. I don't get the feeling that Asian cultures necessarily feel that way. They just want to be related to. They love, that you respect their culture, and that you want to engage in their culture, and that you want to, wear their garments and things like that. Most that I've seen, it seems to be a welcome energy. For African Americans, us, it's awkward for us when you apply that logic to our culture. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what that is. It's like we don't. It's not that we don't want you to enjoy what we do. If you like our music, you like our music. But we don't want you to intentionally put on the display of just dabbling in our arts and in our culture, if it's not something that comes to you naturally, if you don't feel it, and it's a slippery slope from my perspective, because it's like you want people to at least get in the door to learn to love you, right? So you don't want to shun them for getting little tastes and trying to display a sense of solidarity, especially when the reputation that they hold at this point is basically them not willing to do that with you. So from my perspective, just as a person, I'm trying to condition myself to not look at that type of thing funny. I'm trying to, because my initial reaction to Drew Brees doing that was like the same reaction I had to the Democrats putting on the African garment. It just feels awkward. And the reason why it's awkward, and I don't think this conversation is being had enough, is because of the varieties of blackness there are. Because even though we all share a certain hue or melanin or what have you, and we all desire to be treated better because we look the same and have been pretty much to our perspectives, we really come in a lot of different flavors. And it's just how that goes. We are not locked in to a certain truth, meaning there are black people who are this, there are black people who are Muslim, there are that people who are atheists, there are black people who have adapted to other cultures from different places that have nothing to do with anything I'm aware of. Like, so when you try to relate to us by zeroing in on hip hop, you negate the understanding that we come in as many varieties as you do. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it comes down to. We want to be acknowledged as not just black people with black culture, but as everything you see everywhere you go. Because we feel we embody that to some degree. If we were raised in it, if we were from it, we don't want our skin color to be associated with a specific type of culture, which is tricky. It's really tricky because it's hard to know who's who if you're just looking at us. You know what I mean? I've had people tell me they think I'm Cuban. I've had people tell me they think I'm Ethiopian. My family and my roots are from Oklahoma, but I've only been there a couple times. I'm from LA. Like, it's very, very difficult to know exactly who you're looking at when you're looking at an African American person. So trying to apply either African garments or hip hop music to define or relate just only gives you one portion of the possibilities. If you want to relate to Africans, Americans, you got to find out who you're talking to. Because even within our culture, in the hip hop culture, that's regional. A dude from the Bay ain't nothing like a dude from New York. A dude from LA ain't nothing like a dude from Miami. Same culture, very, very, very different subcultures within the cultures that don't really relate much at all in some ways. So that's what it comes down to, is just understanding, like, yo, we come in so many different flavors and facets, and we don't want to be cornered into one box. And we certainly don't want to be appealed to as if we look out from within one box, because we don't. You may look into us because you're far away and have engaged with other cultures in a certain way. You think you want to go engage with us that way, but we hold ourselves in a different. We hold ourselves differently, I guess. And it's because we don't have a home, we don't have a language, and our original culture has been stripped from us. So whatever we've adapted to, whatever we've chosen, whatever we're around, is us. And that's why trying to appeal to the African American with specific cultures is somewhat cringe, or dare I say insulting to some. Because we don't have a culture. We create what we have from what we were allowed to have. Unlike most other bodies of people who have had their own land, had their own system, had their own language, had their own way of educating their children, had their own religious beliefs and things of that nature that they were able to carry from the beginning of their time. We're still literally developing that because it was taken from us. And then we also have these issues within our culture with individuals who don't identify as black even though they have the same hue. Dominicans. That's what conversation that's been going around. How some black Dominicans don't want to be associated with Africanism and blackness because for whatever reason in their culture it's considered dirty or something of that nature. So even though they were literally came from Africa on the same type of slave ships, just happened to go to a different stop, landed in Dominican Republic as opposed to Boston or some shit. They don't identify as us when they literally are. Every bit is literally art. So it gets to a point where that's also something that we deal with, and that's why we don't really feel it's comfortable that you say, okay, you want to get with black people, let's put on African garment. You want to get with black people, start listening to hip hop, because you're leaving out everybody else, and it's a lot of everybody's. It's a lot. We're everywhere. We're in Canada. We're in China. We're in France. We're everywhere. And they're all black. You know what I mean? And their culture counts as our culture because they are us. So we need to understand that the skin color doesn't really have a set culture attached to it. It's more so about where that person was raised on the planet and what they've chosen to go with if they went with what they had around them. So, yeah, our skin, and it comes down to just respecting the fact that people have to identify what they're looking at. Just because we understand ourselves to be multifaceted, we have to understand that the people that we are reacting to, and the people who are doing this, were raised in a culture where African Americans weren't curious about learning about who we were. They were more so curious about stripping us of all dignity and all information of who we are and all rights. They didn't really want to take the time to find out who we were. And I think we've had, as I've said already, to define who that is because of it. So, yeah, we're a little touchy about that kind of shit. And I think rightfully so. So yeah, I just want to caution, if to be completely honest, it's a conundrum for people who are not black to try to understand us. And it can get a little tiresome, I think, just looking at it from the outside in. And maybe you don't even feel it's worth it after hearing conversations such as these. You're like, why even try? People are never going to respect our efforts. And like I said, that's not the case. We've just been damaged. We are a damaged people, and how we view the world varies from person to person, and we want to be respected for that, as that, not as a group of people. So I know I'm talking in circles, but I really want to drive that point home. That's my purpose for that. And also, I want to mention that Family Guy, the guy that plays Cleveland, he's been doing the show for over 10 years, I'm sure, maybe even longer than that. And we've all watched the show. It's an American regular pastime, Why, and I say this without actually needing a response, it's just rhetorical, but why would you think that our feelings about these things have changed? Just because you've now woken up and started to realize the fruit in respecting our culture. We've been buying Aunt Jemima for fucking, excuse my language, our whole lives. We're used to her being on the damn syrup, man. Uncle Ben, we're used to him being on the rice. He's been there the whole time. That's what you have to understand, America. We don't want you to change things like that. And I say we, I speak for myself because I have to. I know there's somebody else who doesn't feel this way, so I give respect to that. But for me, I don't need you to do that. That's not what I'm asking you for. I appreciate it though, and I see the fruit in the gesture, both for your reputation and for your business. I see it. But all of this isn't necessary. We have learned to accept certain things, and some of those things we must not accept. So the gesture is overly necessary. But the actions that are being done just feel forced, and I feel like we're pushing people into uncomfortable positions that don't make them care. If anything, it would just make them upset and resent us more for what would be considered special treatment. Special treatment that we haven't asked for. And I think that's the biggest misconception about us, is that we want special treatment. No, we want to be treated the way that we should be treated based on what we've already been through. And we want the energy pointed at us that isn't respectful to stop. That doesn't necessarily mean we got to change different American pastimes. We ain't got to, switch up American staples, rather, certain things that we just have had for over 50, 60 years that maybe were created in disrespect, but we've learned to live with. Some of those things can really stay. We just don't care that much. We're not interested in symbols as much as maybe some other cultures are. We don't have our own land. We don't have our own language. We don't have our own, et cetera, et cetera. So symbols don't represent as much to us right now. The symbols that we create from this, maybe, but from before, not really. Symbols are not much to us. We are more so interested in actions, changes, decency, understanding how to treat humans properly. That's what we want. Not for you to change stuff around so that all the bad stuff that you were about is no more. Because you're still that. That's what it comes down to. We understand that even though you're doing this, that's still who you are. Because if it wasn't who you were, it wouldn't have lasted this long. It wouldn't have stayed on these packages for this long. You wouldn't have had Homeboy, who was white, doing Cleveland's voice. You wouldn't have Robert Downey Jr. playing blackface for all of us to enjoy if that wasn't who you were. So changing up now, we're not asking you to change who you are. We're asking you to change how you operate. And I think that's what the misconception is of this African American thing. We need you to understand, and I speak for myself, of course, when I say this. I need you to understand that I don't think you are changing who you are. If you are an abolitionist spirit from the jump, that's who I expect you to be going forward. If you was a KKK hater from the jump, it's who your spirit's probably going to be going forward. I don't think there's a whole lot that we've said or a whole lot that's been revealed that's going to change your spirit either way. So keep being who you are, but understand that your behavior and what's accepted is going to have to be molded into the future. You're going to have to change in order to be in order for your business to be on point. I think that going forward, it's gonna look bad for you if you're disrespectful to us. So that's just what I see coming. We're there. This is where we are, and it's progress, man. It's slow, but it's progress, and we'll take it. But I think being understood is very important in all of this as well. So, yeah, I've said what I had to say, I think. While I don't need you to make changes in that regard, I do want you to make some changes to your laws. I do want you to fix your system so that it doesn't have a revolving door for African Americans and people of color. I do want you to do what you got to do with the police. I do want you to do what you have to do with property, in terms of allowing us opportunities that maybe we didn't have in the past, opening up that lane for African Americans and people of color. And just certain stuff that is in place just to keep us down. Having people who have old racist mindsets still in positions of power, I think is counterproductive if we're trying to really do this, like it seems like we are. Everybody, including corporations, seems very, very serious. So it would behoove all of you guys with your power and influence to get the people who are still in the prehistoric dark ages with their thinking out of positions of power. I think that is very important so that we don't continue to see new laws that are counterproductive to the progress that we're making. I think that is very, very important. See, those are the things that African Americans are actually asking for. Don't do all of this symbolism and all these grandstanding and not address the real stuff. You know, we don't want to be played with, and we are not stupid. All that we are asking for is to be treated right, not for special treatment. Because the fruit and understanding all of this is special treatment brings about a certain level of resentment from everyone else. We're not asking to be resented. We've been resented for a while now. We want to be just respected, and then from there, just left alone. Really, honestly, left alone. And I want you all to think about this. If somebody tortures you for 400 freaking years, 400 years, various levels of torture, both mental, physical, and anything else that you can think of, really all you're going to want is for them to stop. That's it. Just stop. Stop fucking bullying us. I'm just putting it in simple terms. Stop bullying us. That's all we really want from white supremacy. Stop fucking bullying us. All that other extra stuff, it doesn't move us. We're spiritual people. We feel energy. We go off how we feel. If you make us feel bad, we're going to feel bad. If you make us feel good, we're going to feel good. What makes us feel good is just being left alone after 400 years of mistreatment. Just leave us alone, bro. You don't have to try to learn more than you have to learn. The history's all yours. You destroyed the history books. You gave us white Jesus. You gave us all this stuff to follow you, and we've assimilated as best as we can into your system, and you still kick us around, still keep us from reaching our best potential. You still put obstacles in our way that would not be there if you weren't in front of us. It just becomes a situation where we just want to be left alone, honestly. And if we have friends, we want to keep our friends. You know what I mean? Like, if we have white friends and people are close to us, we want your support. If you really get it, we want you to be vocal. But the grandstanding and the gestures and the symbolism and all that stuff, it just doesn't mean as much to us. It doesn't. But the symbols that do matter is bringing those ugly statues down. I'm for that. I think when we celebrate a certain behavior, you're welcoming it to return. And that's the problem that we've had, I think, for a long time. And I mean, we as Americans, everybody, we've just kind of allowed ourselves to get away with stuff that reinforce the wrong energy over and over again. And that's why we're dealing with all of this right now. If somebody would have held somebody accountable back in 1900, no telling how far progress would be if people would just see the fruit in that. So I think that's what it's all about. Just nip it in the bud and finally get it, which is now. So yeah, man, 27 minutes. I think you guys are pretty much tired of my tone of voice. Thank you for watching, and please consider what I said. Just want to be left alone. We just want the laws to change, and all that other stuff, man. Y'all keep on living. We don't want you to hate us any more than you already do. No special treatment needed. Just give us what we're owed. PDF.